Hello and welcome back to HEMAFightBreakdowns. Today I want to talk about improvement, specifically the perception of plateauing and that a lot of people are not plateauing when they think they are, and more specifically that they're generally just doing better than they think they are. The reason I'm bringing this up is because recently someone who I know who has a much better YouTube channel than I do, Cell Sword Arts, put out a video about how they were being a little bit too self-critical of themselves. They're training with Josh Farrat down in Baton Rouge, and it was just generally a really cool video about what it feels like to feel like you are not getting any better or you're not getting out what you're putting in, and to be putting yourself through that training, but then just, not feel like you're getting anything out of it. I've felt like this tons of times. I'm sure many people have before as well. But specifically, what I wanted to do was I wanted to do two things. One, I wanted to show footage of this person who 3 months ago was just starting their real serious longsword training, and more today, a video that released just yesterday, which probably was only filmed maybe a week or two ago. And what I wanted to show was little subtle changes that have improved in their fighting for the purposes of, one, just helping them understand that no, they are actually getting better and they are actually making improvements, but also to give people a template and a methodology for analyzing their own footage and trying to see where they have improved. Because I think in the world of footage analysis, we tend to focus on the negatives a lot. And it's important, just as important, if not more important, to make sure that you understand that you are making progress in the areas that you want to be making progress. So we're going to watch a few exchanges here, and I'm going to talk about some things that I see, and then I'm going to watch some newer footage, and we're going to talk about what's different. So again, this is from 3 months ago, and this person is pretty relatively new to fencing with longsword, and I think very specifically, this is the first couple times they've ever really fought with a steel longsword. I know I first met them at Ascalon 2022 when they came by, and they had very little hands-on training then. And training with Josh, I think, is the first real practice they've had with a coach outside of being self-taught. And one thing I'm noticing a lot is that there is a lot of just like breaking in timidity, where they're kind of throwing attacks that aren't really closing the distance all the way, and just trying to figure out what happens whenever they do certain things. So for example, that last thrust right there didn't actually have the distance required to present a threat. I think it happens again here. Again, didn't quite have the distance to really make it, so this follow-up was free. And that's the kind of thing you see a lot in people who are just starting out. We see some decent winding mechanics, some good distance, some good athleticism, but just, not quite the same amount of technical know-how. So here we're going to watch some more recent footage, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to compare some of the things that I was seeing before to some of the things I'm seeing now. And this is again against Josh Farrat, a very good longsword instructor from Baton Rouge. So right off the bat, what we see is some of the same sorts of attacks that we were seeing before, but much better measured and with intent. So if you watch this exchange again, this is an Oberhau that basically comes back after the bind to an Unterhau. You see Josh throws a kind of a feeling out Zorn just to sort of engage with the blade and get into a bind. And after this, this person ducks their sword under, goes into a hang and parry, and throws a very nice little Unterhau right here to the hands, as Josh was preparing to throw his own hang and parry to counter what he thought was coming. But look at the distance here. This is exactly how close you want to be. You don't want to be any closer. You don't want to be any further. And if you watch the exchange back again, what you see is that there was a really, really good maintaining of that distance throughout the entire exchange. This is one of the major things that I'm seeing is improving here, and one thing that you see improve in a lot of people after their first couple months of training. Because one thing that you don't appreciate when maybe even you've come from other martial arts or other athletic backgrounds is that every single sport has its own distance, its own timing. And even if you're very athletic, even if you're very skilled, even if you're very strong, this adjustment to that distance and that timing is always one of the first things to feel wrong, and always the first things that feels better. So The other thing you're seeing much better, even when the exchanges are being lost, is that aggression is back. I was talking about a little bit of timidity in the earlier video. That timidity is all gone. You see this person constantly being on the defensive against Josh. And I have a feeling that this is, edited down to really only show the blows that hit. But in that case, what I would tell, Sword Arts is that your offense is really getting better. Not only did you just start becoming adept at using offense, but you're being very good about maintaining a proper distance based on the attack that you're selecting. So breaking down this next exchange here, what you see is something very common with people who are newer, which is they will throw up their sword and throw feints. And it works primarily because it gets you to start moving your opponent into the defensive position that you want them to be in. The only reason or only way you can know what to do is if you understand positional fighting. If you start down low, you bring your blade up high and then hit them during the transition from their own low to high guard, you are putting them in a position where they cannot strike you back. Going from low to high is not a position where you can deliver a meaningful amount of force. It's not a place where you can deliver most meaningful hits, but coming from high to low most certainly is. So if you start low, transition to high, and then strike right as your opponent tries to mirror you, you'll get these free hits. And the best part about this is that even if this strike had been blocked, even if it didn't land, look at where the opponent is. They are not in a position to do anything. This sword is forward. This sword is point on target. This sword is back behind the back of the head, unable to do anything. And the other great thing that I'm seeing here as improvement is immediately after striking the target, they have positioned their sword again to receive the afterblow. This is something that a lot of people take a very long time, if not forever, to learn how to do. It's something that gets sort of forced into you by a lot of other sports, which is once you land your attack, once you land your hit, once you score your point, you're done. And you see a lot of people, myself included, who will score a point and then just shut down. And they take those afterblows all the time. And the reality is in HEMA, one of the things I like about it is that sometimes the judge doesn't see everything. Sometimes the hit doesn't get called. Sometimes your hit wasn't actually as good as you thought it was. And you always have to throw up that defense afterwards. Otherwise, you're going to be in trouble. So talking a little bit more specifically about what other people can do to review their own footage, the number one things you want to think about whenever you're training is, what do I want to improve and what sorts of situations am I winning versus losing in? If we go back to the old footage, what I was seeing over and over again was that the opponent was constantly being allowed to just attack freely, and that whenever they threw their own attacks, they weren't fully committing to range because they didn't have the confidence in their attacks to, really commit to them. And we've seen improvements on both of those things. All of these clips, almost all of these clips, are Sellsword being the aggressor, seizing the vor, going in and making properly distanced, properly maintained attacks, covering themselves after they land or don't land, and not letting their opponent just boss them around the ring anymore. And it might not be obvious when you're the subject of this video, but if you go back and you look at some of your own footage, you'll see probably similar things. So if you're looking to improve your training and you're looking to try to use your own footage to become a better fencer, these are the things that you look for. Watch your old fights, see the kinds of things you're good at, see the kinds of things you're bad at, and then watch newer footage and see what improvements and changes have happened. I guarantee you some are there. And even in a short span of 3 months, which realistically in a lifetime of training isn't a lot, you can see a lot of changes. Even if you're still getting beat up by your coach, even if you're not seeing the results in tournaments, you are improving and you're getting there. So that's the most important thing for a lot of people to keep in mind. And that's going to be it for today. If you'd like to see your own footage featured on the channel, feel free to send me an email over at HEMAFightBreakdowns@gmail.com, and I hope to see you next time.